Hey guys, it's John and Shannon with That DIY Couple. We're here doing our March 2020 update and we have some big news.
You guys, we are paper millionaires.
At last.
At last. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's totally crazy. Like 2013, I was so distraught with money and so overwhelmed. We were like, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And, 7 years later, after getting really serious, on paper at least, we're worth $1 million.
So March is a pretty crazy month for us for a bunch of different reasons, and we'll get into that.
I'm super pregnant.
Shannon is super pregnant. We're doing this at the beginning of April, so we're reflecting back on what happened in March. But let's just get started. So this is a picture of us in March. We're actually in Boston, I think, at the beginning of the month, or maybe the very end of February. So this is a picture of us from that time. We're going to start with our debts, as we normally do. Do you want to talk about it?
So we're still at zero credit card debt. We hope to stay there indefinitely. My student loans went down by $4,500, almost $600, because I'm paying them more aggressively.
So we refinanced in February, and this is the second month of paying them more aggressively with our new financing.
In February, we put $8,544 towards our house's mortgage because we were briefly considering throwing more money at our mortgage before the economy tanked much further.
So yeah,
in March rather, we did that.
So we should talk a little bit about that. So at the beginning of March, we had set out a plan at the end of February to figure out what to do with all of the excess cash that we had in our checking account. So if you've watched our previous videos for the past couple months, we were just keeping a lot of cash because we were refinancing our student loans and we needed to have the cash to show liquidity for that. When that went through, we were thinking about, well, what should we do with the cash right now? And our thinking was, let's put it towards our house, because right now our house we're paying PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. And that's because we didn't put down 20% of the down payment when we purchased our house initially. So because of that, we have to pay an additional fee every month on this mortgage insurance.
Yeah.
It's a few $100s a month, and it functionally means that our interest rate is just higher. And there are two ways to get out of PMI. One is to refinance and hope that the value of the house has increased. And two is to just pay down the debt, the mortgage enough so that we have 20% of the value initially of the house in the property. So we've paid it down where we have a loan that's 80% of the original value of the property. So we didn't want to refinance because we're not sure that the value of our house has gone up, and also we don't want to pay the loan longer. We want to try to pay the loan back more quickly. So initially we thought, let's put more money into the mortgage. But within the first week of March, I think we made this payment like March 1st or something like that. Within the first week of March, I think the market decreased by like 30%. This is the stock market because of the global issue that's going on that advertisers don't like to talk about that. But everyone knows who's watching this video what's happening. And so when that happened, we thought, hey, we might have some issues with some of our investment properties, with some of our tenants not paying. We might have some issues with just our own liquidity and whatever else, because who knows what's going on with the broader economy. So we did this in 1 month, which is March, and then we stopped. So our plan right now is to essentially hoard cash for the next few months. And that's what I would say is probably what everybody I know who has a lot of cash is doing. They're just saying, hey, look, I'm going to stop investing for the time being just because I want to wait and see what happens in the market and keep money on the sidelines.
I'll correct you there. We're not stopping investing. We're still making what we did was we made actually several extra payments as the market was crashing in an attempt to kind of catch the knife and buy in at a value. So we do our regular twice a month, we push money to all of our retirement accounts and things like that. And we did extra payments, as you'll see. But then as it became clear that we're really in it for a prolonged recession, we stopped trying to time the market.
Well, maybe.
And we left our, who knows? But we left our automatic investing to continue. So we're still doing dollar cost averaging, continuing to plug money into the stock market, but we're not aggressive. We're not as aggressively paying down our mortgage right now.
Right. So the net result is that in March, it looks like we made an aggressive payment on our mortgage, which is true, but that's probably going to be the only month that we've done that for the foreseeable future. And we'll talk about in a next video about what our debt payment plan is right now for the foreseeable future. But for the purposes of this month, we paid down about $15,000 of debt in total for a yearly change of about $32,000 in our debt pay down.
So the next slide shows our debts today as a graph as compared to October 2019 when we got really serious about debt pay down. You can see the credit cards have fallen off. Now we're tackling the student loans. After that, we're going to aggressively tackle the house mortgage. And eventually this will just be investment property debt, which is cash flow positive, pays for itself, and at a very low interest rate. And, you know, we have a lot of equity in each of the houses.
So this is our asset slide for March 2020. And this is what caused us to become paper millionaires, at least in March 2020, was the increase in value of our investment properties. So I said in a previous video that I don't update the value of our investment properties consistently, and that's true. I think that the last time I really thought about the change in value was the middle of last year. But what happened at the beginning of 2020 was, as everyone knows, because of world events and the world economy and whatever else, interest rates have plummeted. And that also means that interest rates on mortgages have plummeted. So what we decided to do is take two of our properties, in fact, the first two properties that we ever bought, and refinance them, because we were paying interest rates in the 5% range. We'd refinanced them about 2 years ago. And now interest rates in March and continuing now are in the low 4s. I think in some of these we have high 3% range, which is the lowest I think I've ever seen. In conjunction with that, we have to get an appraisal of our properties. So we had an appraiser come out that the bank sent, and he went to two of our properties in February, and we got the results back in March, and he said that the value of our properties was way more than what I had thought those two properties were worth. So I think the value of each property I had miscalculated personally by over $100,000. That's probably the case with a lot of our other properties too, because I usually take a pretty conservative approach to the value of our properties, just because why not? It's hard to peg, you know, the value of a residential property.
And he was probably factoring in all the improvements we did, because it's important to remember that we bought really distressed properties, and then we put a lot of sweat equity into them.
Yeah, although I think I had, you know, priced the properties considering that. I'm not entirely sure if we could sell the properties at the value that we got, but this is the appraised value.
Probably not today.
So I think that's like as good as you're going to get in terms of what you think the value of the properties are. As a result, the value of our investment properties, because these two properties are owned entirely by us, they're not owned in an investment group at all, that increase in value is directly an increase in our net worth, an increase in our assets. So it's an increase of $253,000. That's how far we were off on these two properties. So that's great. That alone is a massive, massive change.
It's great. And the other thing that's great about it is that we took the amount of money that we're going to save every month now in interest, and we plugged it into a calculator that shows how much we will get in 30 years at the end of these mortgages if or paying that towards interest, we invest it, and we got about $500,000.
Yeah, so instead of paying the 5%, we're paying more like 4% or 3.9%, and then if we took that difference and invested it, it's a lot of money.
We assumed a 6% rate of return, which I think is actually fairly conservative, because the historic rate of return is like 8%, but you never know. And so, you know, over time, that one decision is really going to be very helpful.
Well, unfortunately, we're still waiting to close on these properties because the financial markets have been so crazy and everything has been so slow. But when those get refinanced, which I hope will happen in the month of April, things will be really great for that. We didn't change the value of our house, but something to talk about is our retirement and investment accounts and our checking and savings accounts. So in this graph, it looks like the value of our retirement and investment accounts has increased. And on paper, that is true. However, what you don't see, and what I'm about to explain, is that the actual amount of money that we had in our retirement accounts at the end of February decreased substantially. And that's because the market, again, went crazy in the month of March. We had massive losses. I mean, at times during the month of March, I think we were down almost 40% on our retirement accounts, and it recovered a little bit by the end. What we did, as Shannon mentioned before, is we took money from our checking account and put that into our retirement accounts to see if we could invest when the market was at a lower ebb. So that $20,000 that you see is really us transferring that into our retirement accounts, and the net positive is that we transferred so much that even though we lost probably 15 grand in our accounts by the end of the month, we still had a net positive by just transferring money from our checking accounts.
Our personal property didn't change. Our business accounts went up by 12 grand. I actually think, babe, that only part of the checkings and savings, the negative 21,000, we didn't put $21,000 into the market. A lot of that is actually just being moved to the business accounts. So what we did was we put some money into the stock market, and we actually moved other money from our personal checkings and savings into our business accounts to pad the emergency funds of each of our individual properties. So we were anticipating that, you know, tenants might have some difficulty paying rent. Actually, they've been pretty good. We've been really impressed.
I would say they've been okay. Yeah, I would say like 80 to 90% have been fine.
Yeah. And, you know, we'll see as this crisis continues to evolve. But we were basically anticipating a liquidity crunch. So the negative 21,000 of that, the 12,755 was just moved to a different type of account. So in total, our assets are up $248,521 in the month of March because of that appraisal.
So for the year, for the first 3 months of the year, it's almost over $250,000 of change in value of our assets, again, because of the humongous change in our investment properties. So it's weird for the month of March, which I would say is probably going to be the worst month for most people on paper because of all of the losses in the stock market. It was actually probably our best month ever just because of this reappraisal. So you might argue like, oh, well, the house was always worth that. It was worth that back in December. It was worth that. I mean, sure. But for the purposes of our paper calculations, this is the month where we like figured that out and kind of recognized it.
Yeah. And what does that mean for us in practice? Nothing, right? Because the money is all tied up in the house. You know, the events in the world economy have made it such that this is not a favorable market to sell a house.
This is a historic, I couldn't think of a worse time in the past 5 years to sell property than right now.
Right. So it seems actually thinking it through, even if values in the last year, which is what the appraisal is based on, have increased a lot, it seems unlikely that we would actually get that if we were to liquidate the house. But because it's a objective data point, we included it in our calculation.
This is a pie chart of our assets. The big change is that our investment properties have become an even larger part of our net worth or of our assets. We actually didn't want that because we've been trying to diversify and invest more in the stock market, but given that the stock market declined massively and we had this kind of, you know, revaluation of 2 of our investment properties, it is what it is.
So in the traditional calculation, our net worth is calculated by taking total assets minus total debt. So 3.5 million minus 2.3 million equals about 1.2 million.
It's crazy.
Which is crazy.
So that's a change of over $250,000 from the previous month, and a change of almost $300,000 for the entire year, totally driven by our investment properties. But it still is pretty cool. I think, you know, it's cool to see on paper to have 7 digits. I think that's cool.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And it's been a long time coming for us because if you remember some of our first videos in this series, we were talking about being a negative traditional net worth. I mean, like negative, I think 6 figures at some point. So.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if in the coming years, all of our investment properties go down in value, right? We're expecting real estate has been at historic highs, and just like the stock market just went down in value, I think it's entirely likely that there will be another dip in the real estate market.
Absolutely. And real estate was going to lag the stock market a fair amount just because appraisals are based on, you know, running year averages. Mm-hmm. So last year was a really strong market for the real estate, a really strong time for the real estate market. This year, 2020, is not a really strong time for the real estate market. So in about a year, we're probably going to see that appreciation come off. And it is what it is. So hopefully in that year, we'll be a little bit more invested in other things, but for what it is right now, we're happy to accept it.
So in the conservative calculation of our net worth, we take our total assets and we subtract the things that we wouldn't sell in an emergency situation: our house, our car, and our personal property. So in March, we had $3.5 million in assets. We subtract the $550,000 value of our house, our $17,500 in personal property, and our $10,000 car, and then we subtract the $2.2 million that we have in investment and student loan and house debt, and we get a conservative net worth of $626,933.
So that change, again, is driven by the real estate increase, so it's another $250,000 change or so. Now the year we're up about $286,000 in our conservative net worth.
So here's a graph of our net worth over the past year. Not a ton has changed. And here's our net worth over time, which really shows the dramatic increase from 2008 to today in 2020.
So you can see in that net worth, in the first few years we were at zero basically in net worth, and now we have increased that by a fair amount, so we're really happy.
So we've been focusing since October of 2019 on paying down our debts, our personal debts, very quickly. So in the month of March, we paid down about 15 grand in debt. So that's comprised of the 4.5 grand on the student loan and about 7 grand that we put towards our house mortgage, and then just the regular ordinary slow pay course on our investment properties of $2,500.
So our debt graveyard, which is the total debts that we've paid off since October 2019 when we got very serious about paying off debt, as updated in March 2020, is $153,296. So I think that's also a huge number. Every month I kind of reflect on how big it is, but we made more payments in March than we had in February and January, so I'm super happy about that, even though it was a really hard time in the markets. So
So we hope you guys will continue along with us. We wouldn't be surprised if we dip back down below $1 million because
sure will happen.
Because of the changes in the, because the fact that after the stock market crashes, the property markets will probably also start to decline. But
take your wins when you can get them.
Yeah, we're happy in an otherwise really difficult month, as I'm sure a lot of you experienced. We're really happy with that.
Hope everybody is safe and secure at home, still quarantining and distancing and everything else. Please let us know how you guys did in March. I'd be super curious. We're going to do another video kind of on our debt strategy, and that we've changed it a little bit after some of the events of the beginning of this year, and also reevaluating our spending and our income. And we'll also do another update on April. I think by the time we do our next update, we will have had a baby. So that will be a big one. It's not going to change our net worth, I suppose, although it'll change our kind of intrinsic net worth, I think. But thank you guys so much.
Until next time, do well and always make things better.
Oh.